Good morning, and welcome to another 5 Good Minutes with the Word. Today we're introducing the book of Acts, written by Luke, and it continues on the story of what happened when Jesus was taken up into heaven, and as the gospel about Jesus continues to be preached throughout the world. As we said when we talked about the book of Luke, Luke does due diligence as a historian. As he tells us in the first 2 verses of his gospel, he talks to eyewitnesses, he researches his sources. But we have an added advantage in the book of Acts because beginning in chapter 16, Luke himself is an eyewitness. We have the we passages where he talks about we did this and we did that. He has joined Paul in Paul's adventure as an evangelist. And so he's there when so much of this happens. The book of Acts was written to Theophilus, as is the book of Luke. The first account I composed, Theophilus, about all that Jesus began to do and teach until the day when he was taken up after he had by the Holy Spirit given orders to the apostles whom he had chosen. Who is this Theophilus? Well, the name, a Greek name, literally means a God lover, a friend of God. And it could be a man's name. It was a common enough name at the time. But it also could be a category of person. Remember in Judaism, there was this phrase, God lover, God fearer. Cornelius is a God fearer, someone who believes in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but who has not converted to Judaism. This may be a category of person, Theophilus. Theophilus might be someone who knows about Jesus, who is interested in Jesus, and who wants to follow Jesus, but who has not yet become a Christian. It's hard to know. The book of Acts follows the course of events that Jesus himself sets out in the first chapter, verse 8, when he's talking to the apostles before his ascension, and he says, "You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the remotest part of the earth." And that's exactly how the book of Acts is constructed. It's not like the Gospel of Luke in that it moves at a frenetic pace. This is an adventure story, and it's a very exciting book to read. It has everything in it. It has travel. It has the oldest account of a shipwreck written in any language in this book. So many details, so many events happening, and they happen at breakneck speed. The book is divided in 2 sections. The first half basically is the story of Peter. The second half is the story of Paul. Luke tells us that he writes an orderly account in Luke's gospel, but that doesn't mean that it's in strict chronological order, but that things are grouped in an orderly way. And there is a parallel between the careers of Peter and Paul. Peter and Paul both perform one resurrection event. Peter raises Tabitha from the dead. Paul later on raises Eutychus from the dead. Both of these men are able to heal at a distance. We're told in Acts chapter 5, verse 15, that Peter's shadow can heal the sick, and in Acts chapter 19, verse 12, that people take bits of cloth away from Paul and apply them to the sick, and the sick are healed. However, the main character of the book is the Holy Spirit himself. He's the one who is promised by Jesus. He's the one whose arrival propels the events. He is the one who is in charge of the events throughout. The Holy Spirit is the main character of the book of Acts. As we said when we talked about the Gospel of Luke, Luke uses a lot of very precise language. He uses the appropriate names for Roman officials, for Roman cities. He uses place names, and also he uses his physician's eye to give us the specific technical term for ailments when we're talking about people. Chapter 18, verse 12 is important because it tells us that in the year that they were in Ephesus, Gallio was proconsul of Achaia, or excuse me, the year they were in Corinth. Gallio was proconsul of Achaia. And we know that Gallio was proconsul for 1 year in AD 51, and we use that date to date everything else in the book of Acts. The book of Acts ends at a peculiar spot. Paul is in Rome under house arrest. He's not yet been tried. We don't know how things end, but he's staying there for 2 full years in his own rented apartment, preaching the gospel unhindered. The last word of the book of Acts is the word unhindered. We may think that the story is unresolved, and perhaps that's because Luke has written it before it has played itself out. I don't know. There is speculation that both Luke and Acts are documents that Luke presents to Roman officials to explain the story of what has happened to Paul, and might even be part of his defense. I don't know. It's intriguing to think about. That last word is not coincidental. The gospel is unhindered, and you'll see that throughout your reading of the book of Acts. Thank you for joining me for our 5 Good Minutes. Tomorrow we'll talk about the sermons of Paul in this book.